On today's show,
the Warriors crushed the Spurs, but how much stock do you put into one dominant win?
in the up-down report, does icing a free throw shooter work? And was Pop right to fire a shot at the Cavs?
And Blake Griffin did what? And to whom? We break down the crazy report out of Clipperland.
It's Tuesday, January 26th. The starter starts now.
Good evening, sweet world, and welcome to The Starters. Whether you're listening to the podcast or watching us on NBA TV and or YouTube, we're happy to have you. I'm Jay Skeets, and alongside me, as always, that's Tass Mellis.
Happy 39th birthday, Vince Carter.
To his right, it's the international man of mystery, back from Cleveland, Lee Ellis.
Friends.
Lee, great to have you back. Finally, last, certainly not least, Starters blog editor, Trey Kirby.
Hey-o!
Hey-yo! Trey, what's happening on the internet today?
Well, I'm here at the internet looking for your best tweets at #TheStarters. And guys, last weekend, the Sacramento Kings let a fan's corgi, Minnie, take over their social media accounts. And let me tell you, Minnie was busy. Here she is meeting players, hitting the team's store, appearing on the broadcast, and even blasting a Starters-approved tweet about a pun. I love it. Think it should happen with more and more teams. But it makes me think a question. What kind of dog or what kind of animal do you want to take over an NBA Twitter account next? For me, it's got to be my dog Yams, who knows basketball quite well. Here I am, dunking over, getting ready for last year's dunk contest. Anyways, send us your best tweets at #TheStarters, and we'll hear your best answers a bit later.
Is that animal abuse? I'm not sure.
No, she loved it.
Okay, all right, get your tweets in, guys. #TheStarters. All right, we got tons to get to tonight. We start with dissecting, the regular season game of the century that sort of wasn't. Yeah, it was a little bit of a buzzkill. The Warriors, they got off to a hot start last night against the Spurs. They never looked back. They beat them by 30, 120-90. You saw it here on the network. Steph Curry was brilliant, as usual. Scored 37 points in just 28 minutes. He sat the entire fourth quarter. He's done that a few times this season. So the Dubs go to 41-4, and the Spurs fall to 38-7. It was a little bit disappointing because we thought this was going to be a great game. But look, how much stock do you put in to this one dominant Warriors win? Any?
You
Little?
have to.
What do you do?
You have to put some stock into it because the Warriors are the best team on the planet, and they know it. The Spurs are not in their head. They used to be in their heads a little bit, that sense of awe, but they're not. And most importantly, they're not in the head of their best player, Stephen Curry, at this point.
No.
That's the most important thing.
He's out of his head.
Because I don't know if anyone can stop him the way he's playing right now but himself. And the way he's got Kawhi Leonard on skates last night, the way they're really using him off the ball, the way he is floating above ground, it sure feels like. Again, I feel bad for the bench because they have to get up so often to cheer for Steph Curry. But no, I really think watching the bench and how they still get up, continuously get up, game after game after game, shot after shot after shot, it shows how much these guys want to win, shows how much they love their star, shows how much they love each other. No one's in Steph's head. This team knows that they are the best. When they are the number one seed coming out of the West, they're going to be the favorites.
It was crazy to see the Spurs really try everyone on them last two. They started with Tony Parker. That lasted about 2.5 minutes.
Pretty quickly going to Kawhi.
Because Curry lit him up, and we saw Kawhi very, very early. We didn't even know if we would even see Kawhi Leonard on Steph Curry last night. You're right, Pop decided, I got to go to him. We saw Mills at time. Jonathan Simmons got run at time. It didn't really matter. And then, obviously, the most impressive part is Kawhi Leonard, the Defensive Player of the Year, who many think is the best perimeter defender in the league. He didn't even stand a chance.
He had his ankles broken when he didn't even have the ball, Steph Curry,
Yeah.
like that. But look, it was a great performance. There's no doubt about it by the Warriors. But it's only a one regular season game in January. And if there's one thing we know about the San Antonio Spurs is no team bounces back better than they do. Pop got a look at how the Warriors play. You know now he's got plenty of time to plan and prepare for the next game. They've got 3 more regular season games, and then if they meet in the playoffs. So as much as the Warriors are probably happy this morning, the Spurs are probably, to them, it's like, let's just forget about it, move on, because they know they're going to have plenty more opportunities to work on something and try to get back into it.
One thing they're going to work on, of course, I would think, not to pretend I'm Popovich here, but get rid of the turnovers. That was really weird to see a Spurs team with 26, I believe, in the end, turnovers, some of those leading to easy fast break points for the Warriors.
Yeah, what do you go into practice and say, hey, don't throw the ball away?
Yeah.
I mean, they just didn't look like themselves. They were thrown off being in the Oracle. And a big reason I think that they started turning the ball over and were so sloppy is because they didn't have Tim Duncan out there, just to rock what they know going forward. Every time you go down the floor, all right, we're running through this not just running through Timmy, but just having him on the floor, and that's a big part of it.
Well, the Warriors took advantage of literally everything they could, too. They were helping off every single shooter that they could help off. You see Steph Curry got so many steals in the first quarter, just helping off Tim Duncan. And then on the offensive end, the Spurs were overplaying quite a bit, so the Warriors were hitting them with the back cut time after time without Tim Duncan there at the rim. What are you going to do?
You say it's one game, though. I agree with Tass a little bit here. You got to put some stock into this because a couple of reasons. One, they crushed them. They did crush them. This wasn't a close game. It was over after 3 quarters. The second thing is the Warriors, time and time again here, our friend Paul Flannery, he said it's like the Warriors are the biggest buzzkill in the league, right? No one does buzzkill like the Warriors. Every time they faced a challenge this regular season, they delivered this crazy knockout blow. We saw them kill the Cavs, they took care of the Bulls, now they took care of the Spurs. And then the third reason here of why you got to put something into this, the Spurs are chasing them. In the win-loss column, 4 home court advantage, that #1 seed. I mean, they're 3 games back now, which doesn't sound like a lot, not even at the All-Star break, but it is when the Warriors, may not lose 10 total games this year. That's a lot. And we already talked about when you're the #2 seed in the West this year, you're going to have to likely go through OKC in the second round, and then maybe those Warriors in the championship round in the Western Conference, and then, of course, to the finals. That's a lot more difficult than having that #1 seed.
I think the worst part about it is they have to think, do we have a matchup for Steph Curry? And that's the most worrisome part. You go into a game and Steph finds his flow. Again, I think the Clippers might be a better matchup because you've got a little guy in Chris Paul who can get into him game after game after game. You're right. I mean, this is their first time they've met the Spurs in 300 days. That's a long time.
A lot of days.
Give Pop a series and things are different. I don't think they're 30 points better than the San Antonio Spurs. But I'm worried that they don't have a matchup for the best player who is changing the game, who's changing the way you play defense on the ball, off the ball. They have to guard him basically for 45 feet, and I don't know if they have a really good matchup.
Well, let me ask you this, and everyone, of course, watching. Would Tim Duncan have changed last night's result at all? What do you think about that?
I think they don't turn the ball over like that on the offensive end, and on the defensive end, Trey alluded to it, he guards the rim so well, and LaMarcus was getting burnt over and over and over again. Timmy is that guy who would defend the rim a little bit better. This is how they play defense. They play defense with their rock at the back, and you mentioned those back cuts, Trey. It was evident. I mean, they just weren't ready to move their tootsies on defense, and Tim would change that.
Certainly his experience would help, but I mean, a 30-point game is hard to say that someone would make that a Spurs victory. But again, I think part of the reason they turn the ball over so much is the offensive pressure that Golden State put on the ball, knowing that if they get the ball, they're likely to score. So when you get the ball, you have to score. And that put a lot of their guys under pressure. So, I think that, like Tim Duncan, he probably sat back and thought, okay, as a spectator tonight, I saw what they were doing. I know what I'm going to have to bring to the table when he does get healthy again and plays him.
Let's talk about LaMarcus Aldridge a little bit. Not a great game. This is probably his worst game as a Spur. 5 points is all he put up, 2 for 9. I think Draymond Green was really into him. And I think he was rushing, quite frankly. And I think that goes to what you're saying, Lee, a little bit. Like, you play this Dubs team, and in the back of your mind, you're like, we got to score. We got to score.
You have to.
We got to keep matching
them.
Because
they score every time, it seems
especially at home. For sure. What did you think of LaMarcus Aldridge last night, Trey?
I thought he was a little overwhelmed by the moment, to be honest with you. I thought being forced into the role where he's going to have to make a few more plays from the elbow, which is another thing Tim Duncan does very, very well for the Spurs. Not having that there just seemed to throw him off, and once he was thrown off as the secondary guy who's supposed to be getting points for him, it really was just a bad news bears for the Spurs.
Yeah, this Spurs team is the team of the last 18 years or whatever they are. They shouldn't be turning the ball over 26 times. That has nothing to do with X's and O's. They just were sloppy, overwhelmed by the moment. They just weren't right last night.
Okay, so besides getting rid of the turnovers, so I think we can all agree on that, what else can the Spurs do when we get, and unfortunately they don't play till what, late March, I think, the second game, but when they match up again, what can the Spurs do to maybe get a win over the Dubs?
I think they need to somehow destabilise the Warriors, and I think the way to do that might be to try to get under Draymond Green's skin and try to get him off his game, because we know he still is the one guy who talks to referees a lot. He's their emotional leader. If you can somehow maybe get him in foul trouble, get him just...
But who's going to do that on the Spurs?
Well, that's a great
David
question.
West? I mean,
maybe David West. I mean, the thing is you just have to find a way to stop that rhythm and that motor that drives them, because otherwise... Once they get out in transition, they are almost impossible to stop because everyone just spreads the floor, goes to their spot. Trey mentioned you sort of overplay one guy, that just leaves someone else wide open for a three-pointer. Brandon Rush came on and hit a couple of three-pointers last night. I mean, that's a big problem if Brandon Rush can come out there and just slot into that offense so easily.
Well, yeah,
Harrison Barnes had a bad game.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter, someone comes off the bench.
I mean, to me, for the Spurs to have any chance to beat this squad, they have to, when Steph Curry is off the floor, their second unit has to either cut into the deficit that they're at that time or build their lead. they don't stand a chance to me if the Spurs bench play like they did last night. I mean, you had, poor performances from Ginobili and Boris Diaw and Patty Mills. Those guys combining for 3 of 13. Their bench has to outplay the Warriors' bench, which they definitely didn't do last night. Sean Livingston single-handedly outplayed the Spurs' entire bench in that one.
That's, again, the pressure, though, that Golden State put on you, that you know that if you don't go out there and score, that margin just grows so quickly. It can go from 5 points to 10 points to 15 points. So if you are that second unit and you don't get a couple of baskets early on, all of a sudden, all that tension builds up.
1 game of 4 between these teams in the regular season. Hopefully, maybe 7 more in the playoffs at some point, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We got to take a break. Lots more still to come on the show. Like, what in the world is going on with Blake Griffin? Man, this is weird. We'll discuss that and more in the Up-Down Report. You're watching The Starter. Trey asked you earlier in the show to jump on Twitter to answer what animal you wanted to see take over an NBA team accounts like the dog did in Sacramento. Trey, you got a few of the best answers.
Yeah, some good ones. Mavs Man 4 says, I'd like to see that 9-foot snake on Skeets' shoulders take over a team's social media account. Peaches would be great.
Yeah.
No fingers, though. Nick B99 says, Mike Miller's monkey, worth a Google if you've never seen him hanging out with that little capuchin. Just a little cutie guy. My favorite fan lord says, my dog Max, of course, just look at him. How is that possible?
Wow, that's dangerous.
How did that dog get up there and how did it get down?
And why did he put the hashtag Lee Banana?
People always want to know about Lee's bananas.
Okay, all right. Great stuff. Keep your tweets coming. What animal would you like to see take over an NBA team account? Very weird question today. All right, let's get to the Up-Down Report, where the 4 of us figure out where we stand on some hot-button NBA topics. Come on, Trey, come and join us over here at the table. Everyone got their thumbs ready?
Sure
Pretty
have.
simple. We asked you to play along on Twitter. Thumbs up or thumbs down. All right, first one, guys, a weird one. Clippers forward Blake Griffin has injured his right hand after hitting a member of the team's equipment staff during an argument up in Toronto on a recent road trip. Now, the Clippers announced in a statement today that he has fractured his hand, Blake Griffin has, and he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So, guys, up or down on Blake Griffin's very odd injury here?
Who's up on this, baby?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
everyone going down.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
It's hard to be up on this one. They're currently in the 4 seed, and I actually think that they would be a decent matchup in the second round against the Golden State Warriors because Chris Paul, if there's anybody who can match up with Steph, is a decent matchup for him. They played 2 decent games against them, up 23 points once upon a time. So I'm worried that they're going to drop out of that 4 seed and drop into the 5 or 6 spot because, yeah, they were rolling for a while without Blake, but they're starting to come back to earth.
And let's keep in mind here, I'm saying 4 to 6 weeks because the injury. The NBA is going to investigate this incident. There could be further discipline from the league in terms of him maybe missing more games. So he could be out for a while here.
Pretty embarrassing for Doc Rivers and the whole team, really, because they've had a bit of controversy this season, and something like this, and it might have just been playing around. We don't know the details, but it still just looks bad on the team because it looks like he just went out and whacked someone, and now he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, and he hurt his right hand too, which I feel like is even worse. If you're going to hit one of your friends, at least hit him with your non-shooting hand, because 4 to 6 weeks, then you're fixing your hand and you're hoping Blake Griffin, not a guy with a supernatural shot, he's worked on it very hard, shoots it well, but we've seen guys have problems when they hurt their wrist and then they come back and the shot's not quite there.
It takes time.
Bad timing.
I feel like I'm going to break my hand.
Yeah, don't break
that's
your
what it
hand.
feels like when you flip
Oh,
it.
sorry, I got to
It's
put it
not
on my
easy.
non-thumbing hand.
There you go, there you go. All right, next one here, guys. Last night, Kemba Walker, he found himself at the foul line with no time on the clock. He had to hit 2 free throws to put his Hornets up, though, so he hits the first one. But before he could take the second one, Rondo did everything possible to delay the shot from happening. He's crisscrossing through the paint. He's pointing at everyone. Who we subbing in? He's talking up a storm. Of course, what happens? Walker misses the free throw.
He iced him, baby.
It goes to overtime, and the Hornets would end up winning. But up or down on Rondo, like you said it, icing the free throw shooter.
I got to go up.
Why do you got to go up?
Because it worked, 1. And 2, I mean, you really don't have an option at this point. Why not pull it all out of the bag and give it a shot?
Okay, here's why I'm down. I feel like you're being a bit of a hypocrite here, Task, because I remember when Markieff Morris was doing something similar, going back and forth. He didn't know where he was going to line up on the free throw line. He got a technical, you know, you rightfully called him out. So why is this cool?
That's why I'm actually up on this, because Markieff Morris did just get a technical, so it's got to be on the minds of referees. But Rondo was so sneaky about it, and the way he kept pointing at other people rather than just clearly getting in a feud with his own teammate about where to stand, he really confused everybody, and it really worked.
This is why I love free throws, because they're psychological.
It is?
It is so psychological, because apart from Orlando Blackman, there have been big incidents in the NBA history where dudes have missed free throws. Karl Malone.
Yeah,
in 1997,
sure.
Nick Anderson
Naomi
done it as well.
Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, you've got to get into someone's head and do anything you can to win the game. They ended up losing in overtime, but still, they had a chance to extend the game and they went into overtime anyway.
Yeah, I don't think this would necessarily work. You know, just like field goals in the NFL, it doesn't really work. There have been stats done. It's basically the same percentage.
Right.
That being said, I don't think this is Markieff Morris because Sacramento Kings actually like Rajon Rondo. The Phoenix Suns teammates do not like Markieff Morris.
Okay.
And I think Rick Carlisle does this in Dallas, and I don't know if Rajon Rondo took it from him. I wouldn't necessarily think that, but it's definitely a tactic that Rick Carlisle uses, and he uses it well.
Sort of tactic of substituting.
And this is just another trick of Rajon Rondo's. I mean, this guy is full of tricks. Not necessarily. He just does it all year long.
He does. He is the master of tricks. All right, next one here. Greg Popovich and the Spurs. They got waxed by the Warriors last night, but Pop dominated the post-game press conference, getting in a nice little zing about the Cavaliers.
My opening comment here will be, I'm just glad my general manager wasn't in the locker room because it might have gotten me fired.
Wow. All right. Up or down on Pop's pretty good zinger. That's not a surprise.
I'm waiting for someone on the internet to put the Seinfeld music behind that, you know? Exactly.
Sure.
No, but look, coaches stick up for other coaches. You know, that's what they do. Stan Van Gundy had comments, Rick Carlisle had comments, really not happy with how the Cavs handled it. And when you fire a coach when you're in the first place in your division or your conference, you open yourself up for ridicule. You do.
True.
Yeah, I'm fine with a coach taking issue with a position that he knows better than anybody. So I'm fine. Him, you know, adding some commentary to it. This guy obviously comes from a place of knowledge. It's fine.
I think it's slick, too. He gets all the attention off his team just getting killed by 30 points and puts it immediately on a team
We talked
in
about it
another
for 10
conference.
minutes.
Well, you know what I mean. No. Thumbs up. That one's no surprise. All right, I think we got time for one more. Fresh off scoring 48 points on the weekend, DeMarcus Cousins, he one-upped himself last night. He turned in one of the best games in the history of the Kings franchise. Boogie finished with 56 points, 12 boards, 4 assists, and unfortunately 6 fouls. He fouled out in overtime, and they would go on to lose. But look, All-Star reserves are about to be announced this week. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down on Cousins' chances of making the All-Star team?
Lock it in.
Is anybody going down?
Yeah, this is a no-brainer.
Hey, they were 1-7 at one stage. Remember, Sacramento Kings already sort of a little bit of a turmoil and infighting. He has taken this franchise on his shoulders lately and put them in the playoff race.
Yeah.
And he's been brilliant, totally deserving of an All-Star berth.
Top 5 in scoring and rebounding, and he is the biggest interior mismatch in the league. He just throws guys around, spin moves, dunks. He looked incredible last night. I think he's a lot.
Oh, yeah. The Hornets threw, 3 guys on him? Spencer Hawes, Marvin Williams, and Psycho T, and they all fouled out. They couldn't handle him. He scored 104 points in his last 2 games, and you see there the back-to-back 45 and 10 games over the past 30 seasons. Joining some rarefied air there in Barkley Jordan and Antoine Jameson.
Oh, yeah, shout out.
Bit of a shock, that one. All right, fun times in the Up-Down Report. Let's see your thumbs on Twitter. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, LaChina Robinson joins us live from New York to talk about the Latvian unicorn. If you're watching the Stars.
Welcome back to the Starters. We've got a doubleheader on NBA TV tonight. In the nightcap, Dirk will face Kobe for the 50th and final time. To get the night started in what is the game of the night. Yeah, we're calling it the game of the night. KD and the Thunder visit Kristaps and the Knicks. And to tell us what's going on at the Garden, our own LaChina Robinson is on the scene. LaChina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Well, Kevin Durant called Kristaps Porzingis an NBA unicorn because of his size, shooting ability, and shot blocking ability. You asked him about it. What did he have to say?
Yeah, I hadn't heard the term unicorn since I was a little girl, probably back in the My Little Pony days. So it was interesting to me to hear Kevin Durant describe Porzingis in that way. So I had to get some word from the big guy myself.
Well, you know, it's hard to find guys that's that tall, that can shoot threes, and that can block shots. And you see a lot of guys that can block shots that height, but to shoot the three and shoot the the ball so effortlessly is hard to find. So yeah, that was the only word that came to mind.
Now, we haven't heard a lot about Kevin Durant's impending free agency recently, But once you get to MSG, things change. The questions start flowing. You also talked to him about that today.
Yeah, the media members, including myself here in New York, tried everything we could to get Kevin Durant to say something about the status of his free agency, but he didn't bite. I mean, we tried the angle of, are you ready to part with Russell Westbrook? Didn't say anything there. We asked about a larger market versus smaller market. Didn't say anything there, though he did note that he feels like with social media and technology growing the way it is, that the smaller market versus larger market really wouldn't be a factor in terms of coverage in that decision.
Now, we've just learned Carmelo Anthony is out for tonight. Why is he out?
Well, that knee is still bothering him. That surgically repaired knee, and the knee that caused him to have to bow out of their last loss against Charlotte, so that it's still sore. You know, he's got some stiffness there, and Derek Fisher just said we're going to hold him out. He might be day-to-day, but waiting for probably some of that discomfort to dissolve, and that's not good news for the New York Knicks because they are 0-4 without Carmelo Anthony. We don't even have to talk about last year.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, LaChina. We will see you on Fan Night tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
KD going for his 32nd 20-point game tonight. 30 seconds straight. Wow. That was a ridiculous number. One more break here on the Starters. On the other side, unlike yesterday, we'll have an authentic Australian accent for our very solid play.
Back with the Starters, we all had the Warriors last night, so look at those records. The month of January. Tonight's pick'em game, it's the Clippers and the Pacers. Trey, the only one taking Indiana at home. The three of us here taking the Clippers, and it's a tight race, and January is coming to an end, so this is getting very close. Whoever's in last will have to do something weird on the show. Lily, great to have you back for very solid play. Where are we going?
We're going to Oakland. It was a very solid play bonanza last night, but I'm going with this boomerang from Klay Thompson to Spades, a Dre Bomb Green through back to Klay for the beautiful layup. Watch it again here. Klay starts it. Draymond finds him, Klay finishes, and that's what I call a very solid play. Dre Bomb Green.
Oh,
Dre Bomb Green.
Yeah.
Dre Bomb Green.
Lee, you did a fantastic job in Cleveland.
Thank you.
Yesterday, of course, covering the Wolves-Cavs game from the network. One of our favorite parts, though, was your walk-off interview with Tristan Thompson, and you talked to him a little bit about the Australia Day celebrations.
It's a big day for Matthew Dellavedova back in Australia. This game was beamed live back there. What can you say about his performance tonight?
Della gives a full effort every night. You know, he works his tail off. You know, me and him have a good connection on the lob, so, you know, he's representing Australia very well.
If I said to you, Aussie, 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 what would you say?
Oi, oi, oi.
Wow!
Shout out to Tristan Thompson.
He nailed it.
He's great.
He
nailed it.
Absolutely.
The Commonwealth,
nailed it.
baby, we're tight.
Yeah, great job. All right, that's it for us tonight. Stick around for, of course, the doubleheader here on the network. We're back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Thanks for joining us, folks. And remember, in 2016, I like your feed is more of a compliment than I like you.
Brace the night, people.